This video is sponsored by Deep Cut Studios. For a wide range of fantastic gaming resources such as battle mats, dice trays and pre-painted bases, check out the description below.
Tell me, my friend, what do you know of old Malifaux, a time of myth and legends, when beings of great power walked its lands? Not much. Understandable. Why worry about the past when the present is already complicated enough? But my friend, I have to tell you that there is one piece of the past that you need to be aware of. A being who once ruled over Malifaux, and is recently making her presence known once again. Titania, Queen of the Fae. You see, back in the day, one didn't rule a place like Malifaux without some considerable power, and Titania had that in spades. For example, to the Fae, concepts like life and rebirth was very important, in a spiritual and magical sense, and Titania was tied to that concept more than most, and there was no greater showcase of this link than the Gorar, a beast that as far as I know is formed from Titania's power, the creature able to sacrifice itself to resurrect one of Titania's champions if they ever fell in battle. And no, I don't mean returning in a state of undeath. I mean true resurrection, returning as a living, breathing being. Her reign was a long and prosperous one. Her Autumn Knights enforced her will, and her closest advisor and seer Eslin ensured no one conspired against her queen. Everything seemed to be going fine, until the tyrants came, beings of immense power, who wanted nothing more than to dominate, well, everything. Now these tyrants seemed unstoppable, but Titania had a plan. Under her guidance, her people built Kythera, a portal to a realm where the personification of death could be found, a being known as the Grave Spirit. Using its power, Titania was able to weaken the tyrants, allowing her people to bind these immortals in prisons across Malifaux. That power also killed Titania, but that didn't stop her, as the magic of the Grave Spirit resurrected her as the first undead ever seen on that world. Now Titania expected praise for defeating the tyrants, but sadly, that was not the case. You see, many of her people were a tad bit freaked out that their queen was now an undead abomination. There was also the fact that they had barely stopped the Grave Spirit from entering their world and ending all life. Although in Titania's defense, I am pretty sure she had not intended for that to happen. Afraid of what she might do, her people built a prison called Kythera, and trapped her and many of her loyal subjects inside. Those still loyal to her on the outside were hunted down, and most were, well, permanently removed from history if you get my meaning. Centuries passed and Titania slumbered in that prison, locked away from the world she once ruled. That was until, as usually happens in Malifaux, humans stuck their noses in places they shouldn't have, and released Titania once again. Now the reason you might not have heard of an angry Fae goddess storming the walls of Malifaux City is because Titania was extremely weakened from her time being imprisoned, so she knew she needed to be careful. She slowly started gathering her power, and calling up old pacts with her subjects from times before, like the Rougarou, wolf-like creatures with empty eye sockets that are her loyal hunting hounds, or the Bulltongan, a people who were wiped out long ago, but Titania was able to resurrect and bring back into the fold. But she isn't above making new pacts, whether it be with like-minded humans, or even stranger creatures, like Killjoy, an undead being who, as far as I know, has been walking around Malifaux for centuries, and many theorized was in that state for some crime he had committed in the distant past. Now, as I had said, Titania was going to take things nice and slow, but the near birth of a new tyrant called the Burning Man understandably had her a bit worried, making her realize that these stupid humans might eventually create, or more likely stumble upon, something that even she couldn't stop. Already, my friend, I hear of small towns on the outskirts getting attacked by her forces, which means that Titania is done waiting, and is aiming to reconquer Malifaux and make it her domain once again. And I can guarantee that any who get in her way will most likely become little more than ash at her feet, feeding the soil of her reborn kingdom.
Hi guys, and welcome back to our Malifaux Masters Breakdown, where we showcase the factions and personalities vying for soulstones and dominance within the Broken City. Today's episode features the Autumn Queen Titania and her Fae keyword. Titania and her Fae keyword are a durable and hard-hitting crew who use the wilds of Malifaux to their advantage. The majority of the Fae keyword has the abundant growth ability to place a 50mm concealing severe marker anywhere on the table after crews have deployed. As well as hampering the enemy's movement, these underbrush markers are also key for the Into Thorns trigger, which appears on almost every Fae model's attack actions. The trigger allows the Neverborn to add +1 to their damage attacks while the enemy is also within 2 inches of a marker, as well as then placing the target within a nearby marker to slow them down for the next turn. Furthermore, a large proportion of the Fae also have the Undead keyword, more often seen in the Resurrectionists, meaning that although they do have low defense, they make up for it with large health pools and the always useful Hard to Wound ability. Titania herself is one of the most durable masters in Malifaux with an impressive 14 wounds. Her combination of being hard to wound and the Cruel Disappointment ability mean that she can sustain a lot of damage when thrown into the front lines. When she does take damage, the Life Leech ability drains health from an enemy activating within 4 inches. Titania's mobility from flight is enhanced even further with the Cradle of Life trigger on her Germinate action, allowing her to place within a newly created underbrush marker within 6 inches. The Queen's signature attack, Awakened Hunger, ignores any concealment the enemy might have and gains a positive to attack if the enemy is in severe terrain. With a 2-4-5 damage track, Into Thorns trigger, as well as putting out Injured, the Queen of the Fae is capable of taking down almost any opponent with a sustained effort. Finally, the bonus action Queen's Command allows movement of underbrush markers as well as ping damage for any enemies ending in base contact. Titania's Serpentine totem, the Gorar, is unusual, and unlike many other totems, he's not insignificant, which is something your opponents can often overlook in the heat of battle. While it has relatively average melee and ranged attacks, the true strength of the Gorar comes from its mould of the other tactical bonus action, which can bring back to play a friendly minion or enforcer who's been killed during the game. Titania's closest advisor is her henchman Aislinn, whose honourable nature means that they cannot be affected by the distracted condition, while Counterspell acts as a card drain for enemies within 6 inches to declare triggers against them. The Decay 8-inch ranged attack also has the Into Thorns trigger built in, as well as putting out Injured on any enemies caught on the blast on every stage of its damage track. Aislinn's abilities as Titania's Seer also allow them to put out scheme markers at range, either through the Draw Out Secrets trigger or Study bonus action to remove scrap and corpse markers. Moving over to Enforcers, and the hulking Malosaurus Rex offers a close combat alternative to tie down opposition with its 2-inch melee zone and 50mm base. With Terrifying 12, Hard to Wound and 12 wounds, the big dino is designed to slug it out in the centre of the board while also pinning enemies in place with pushes thanks to its lashing tendrils and tail whip actions. Next up we have the Monstrous Killjoy, a Terrifying 11, Hard to Wound, min 3 damage beat stick at 10 soulstones. Killjoy's true value comes from the Blood Sacrifice upgrade that he attaches to 2 models after deployment before the game begins. If an enemy is able to slay Killjoy, his Demise Immortal ability allows him to heal full health and bury. A model with the aforementioned upgrade can then sacrifice itself to return Killjoy to the table and activate even if he's already gone that turn. The big boy also has a wide array of ways to heal himself with the Drink Blood trigger on his Massive Cleaver, Eat Your Fill ability and Juggernaut bonus action, meaning putting him down in the first instance is enough of a challenge. The bulk of the Autumn Queen's court is made up of the Autumn Knights, tanky tar pits who are able to stand against even the most formidable fighters to protect their queen. These warriors are unusual for undead as they have a high defense in 6 and armor +1 alongside the usual Hard to Wound. This combined with their parry defensive trigger can make them punch far above their 7 soulstone cost. The exotic weapons melee attack action boasts a variety of excellent triggers, particularly quick reflexes, which is great in the middle of a crowd. With all of this, the enemy might try to avoid the Autumn Knights altogether, but the challenge ability means they'll have to spend valuable cards to attack any other targets. Next up, the Lupine Rougarou acts as Titania's Hounds. These undead beasts have the normal low defense and high wound total associated with the undead, but they boast an impressive move 6 with Relentless Pursuit. The flay and puncture triggers on their ferocious claws mean they are much more likely to hit their excellent severe damage of 6. With finally their intimidating raw attack action meaning they can also pull their weight in moving around enemy models. Next up are the Bulltongan, who were nearly hunted to extinction in Titania's absence. With her escape, they've returned to Malifaux, acting as excellent flankers on the battlefield. While one Bulltongan is not much of a threat, their pack mentality means together they can start to threaten more powerful opponents with enhanced duels. These minions are also great objective runners with movement 6 and relentless pursuit, meaning they can reach most areas of the table very quickly. They also offer a bit of incidental condition removal with the toss in the mud attack action, and anti-scheming with their forage bonus action to remove enemy scheme markers. Finally, Voldgeist are part of the living spirit of Malifaux, with their tangling roots possessing surprising reach by being able to attack any model touching the same piece of severe terrain as the Ents. This ability is supported by the planted roots trait, which prevent the Voldgeist from being moved by enemy effects, as well as being helpful to heal in severe terrain. On the table, the Fae keyword make use of the underbrush markers and severe terrain to both hinder their opponents and enhance their own abilities, with a number of models having the ability to move enemies with the almost ubiquitous Into Thorns trigger. The enemy will often find themselves trapped where they don't want to be, allowing you room to enact your own schemes. Pools that focus on character assassination and damage play to the strengths of the Fae, as do those that require the enemy to move across the board, where your underbrush markers can act as the maximum hindrance possible. Finally, the power of Titania to act as an alpha striker should not be ignored, as both the Queen and her Autumn Knights can take some severe punishment while the remainder of the crew secure victory points. However, if you're looking to usurp the Queen, then fear not, as there are methods to bringing down the Fae and their favoured terrain. Firstly, despite their initial durability, the low defensive models does make them susceptible to high min damage beaters, who will not care about hard to wound as long as they're able to win the duel. Additionally, models that can circumnavigate severe terrain are naturally going to thrive in the wilds. Abilities such as Incorporeal, Flight and Burial will rapidly get you to where you need to be, while marker removal altogether can ruin the damage output of the Fae should Into Thorns be nullified. Finally, if you'd like to take the Queen's Court out for a spin, here's an example list for you where you can use the Malifaux and Killjoy as your front line, even if the enemy bring them down, coming back with the Gorah and Killjoy's Blood Sacrifice upgrades. They're supported by Titania and the Voldgeist, while the Bulltongan and the Ruguru bring mobility and speed to the list, as well as hunting down scheming flankers. So that brings us to the end of this Malifaux Master breakdown. We hope it's been useful in giving you a snapshot of the crew and its mechanics. A massive thank you to the vocal talents of the wonderful Vandus during the video's intro. You can find more of his excellent lore content in the links in the description below. For more talk about Malifaux and its masters, why not check out our podcast The Harlefaux Show, where we break down each keyword and why you should play it. Alternatively, we have a wealth of beginner-friendly battle reports here on the channel that guide players through every flip and decision. Whichever you choose, we look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care, folks. Hi guys, and thank you so much for watching our videos. It means the world to us. If you want to see some more, they should be over here. If you want to support this channel, keep these lights on. You can find links to our Patreon and merchandise in the description below. Take care.